Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching fourth and final part of What If Naruto Received Kakashi's Sharingan. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Daedalus. Blue Lacrima, floating island Panther Lily shouted, Basuda Mamu, as he leapt to his feet and his massive sword materialized in his grasp. Lucy screamed, he just won't leave us alone, as the fairy tale members dispersed to avoid the enormous blade. Panther Lily proclaimed, I am the captain of the Royal Army's 1st Magic War Division, while he hovered in midair with 2 white wings protruding from his back. This Lacrima is the most important piece of our current plans. I won't let you have it. Natsu yelled, Karyu no Hoko, as he threw a huge fireball directly at the overgrown Exceed. Lily roared, I will not allow you to interfere, as he dove straight at the fairy tale mages while dodging the flames. Tetsuryuken! Exclaimed Gajeel Red Fox, who stood behind Panther Lily, his right arm now shaped like a chain sword. Come here! He chuckled as he lashed out at the shadowy Exceed, who barely avoided the blow. Wendy exclaimed, Gajeel? As the Iron Dragon Slayer touched down next to them. They heard Gajeel say, I'll handle this guy, you all better hurry up and save everyone. Natsu trailed off, you. With a mocking tone, Gajeel questioned, what's with that face? Get going already, I'll deal with this guy. Good luck, Natsu said at last, then hurried off toward the massive Lacrima in the middle of the floating island, Wendy, Lucy, Carla, and Happy in tow. Panther Lily roared, I won't let you escape, and pursued them with great speed. You're fighting me now, Gajeel said with a smile as he emerged before the shadowy Exceed. I'm going to make you my cat. Carla said, Wendy, Happy, I think we should go to Extalia, as they got closer to the big blue Lacrima. Why? Inquired Wendy. Carla answered, we have to face the god of this world. The queen of the Exceed sent Happy and I to Earthland in order to kill the Dragon Slayers, but I don't want to follow that order. Surprised, Wendy said, you were sent to Earthland to kill us? Yes, Carla replied piteously. While Happy doesn't seem to have any memories regarding our mission, I do, but I refuse to follow those orders. Carla nodded in response to Happy's question, so we really are from Daedalus? He grinned broadly and remarked, we're fairy tale mages. It doesn't matter what they sent us to do, we make our own choices. Carla trailed off, Happy. Let's go, smiled Happy. With a, if you're sure, Natsu said. The three nodded when he said, be safe, and then Carla took Wendy by the shoulders and launched herself into the air, Happy following closely behind. Lucy said, I hope they'll be alright, with concern. They'll be fine, Natsu assured them. Let's worry about this Lacrima before anyone else shows up to stop us. Daedalus. Red Lacrima, floating island, destroyed. Naruto exclaimed, what's the matter? As the two parted ways. He vanished from his chakra shroud in a burst of yellow light, his Kusanagi no Tsurugi spinning in his hand. Can't keep up? Nightwalker yelled back, silence, as she vanished into thin air. As they clashed once more and separated, a loud clang reverberated throughout the battlefield. She screamed, you have no right to speak to me, as she leapt into the air and her spear began to glow once more. Bakuhatsu no Yari. Ekusapurahon. The spearhead glowed a furious red and abruptly took the shape of a triangular blade. As Nightwalker swung down, Naruto thought, that doesn't look friendly. He muttered, Susanoo, as the spear's tip appeared to burst and swept over with a thunderous roar. Nightwalker grinned ruthlessly as she landed a few feet away from the smoke. I know I hit you that time, she said. As the smoke cleared, Naruto's voice said, you're joking, right? The blonde Jinchuriki stood with an ethereal samurai-like figure encasing his form, seemingly unharmed. Its right hand now held the Kusanagi, and its left hand held 6 tiny orange Magatama. Naruto had been learning how to wield a sword from Urza, his Urza anyway, and to a lesser degree Itachi ever since he had first awakened his Susanoo and acquired the Kusanagi. By copying his Sharingan and using his shadow clones extensively, he was able to quickly learn his Kenjutsu to the point where he could use the Kusanagi effectively in combat. Everything was not flawless, though, and although he might have been able to cut through anything he touched and reach farther with the sword, it also prevented him from creating hand seals, which restricted his use of jutsu. Fortunately, the Kusanagi would instantly move to its right hand whenever he formed Susanoo, enabling him to create hand seals with his own hands. Learning to use all 4 arms at once had taken some time, but fortunately, Itachi had taken to teaching him. In order for Itachi to gain experience fighting with multiple arms and hands, he and Naruto would typically spar with just their Susanoo and Jutsu whenever he was in town. because he could now create chakra arms with just a thought. Kurama's chakra also taught him to use more than 2 hands. Still, it felt strange. Nightwalker exclaimed, "What is that?" Naruto formed a hand seal and shrugged, saying, "This is my Susanoo. I suppose you could call it the real me." Nightwalker asked, "Just what are you? Is this Earthland magic?" "No, it isn't," was Naruto's candid response. "I was not born on Earthland. I just ended up there after leaving my old world behind." "I see," thought Nightwalker. "That explains it then." She nodded before continuing. "I had wondered why I've never seen you here in Edelus, but it would appear that there is no version of you here in this world." Naruto said, "Earthland doesn't have a version of me either," with a shrug. "I figured that your 2 worlds are like sisters." Nightwalker scoffed and said, "This form that you have taken will not save you from me." Naruto smiled and hurled his Magatama in the direction of his opponent. "Let's dance," he said. "Yasaka Magatama." "Who is he?" Nightwalker thought as she turned around. She was blown farther back when the Magatama hit the ground where she had been standing moments before and burst into a torrent of heat and fire. "I will defeat you here," she cried in increasing rage and frustration as her spear began to glow once more. "It doesn't matter what you are or how much power you have," she cried out, "Juryoku no Yari. Yurabiti," as the spearhead transformed into a dark, asymmetrical blade with a round base and white decorations. At the spear's tip, a huge, dark ball of energy developed and grew until it was 4 times her body size. Naruto said out loud, "That doesn't look friendly," and then he extended his hand to the side. He created a white chakra shuriken by spinning 2 golden chakra arms out of his elbow as wind and chakra spiraled in his palm. He yelled, "Futon! Rasen Shuriken!" and launched the attack directly at the enormous, dark sphere. After the 2 strikes collided, the battlefield abruptly fell silent as the chakra shuriken appeared to bleed into the night. As swiftly as it had begun, the silence was broken by a roar of wind and a huge explosion. Both attacks appeared to reverberate before a burst of smoke and fire blew the 2 fighters apart. Nightwalker reflected, "It would appear that I am at a disadvantage at long range based on that last attack." As her spear began to glow again, she added, "I need to close the distance." She cried out, "Soryu no Yari. Buru Kuramusen." As her spear split in 2, one with a bright blue ice covering its spearhead and the other with flames. The blonde Jinchuriki in front of her was hit by a hail of fire and ice as she leapt into the air. How many spears does she possess? As the ice and fire pressed closer to him, Naruto pondered. He muttered, "Shinseton. Arakuru Urashi," as silver flames shot out of his eyes, forming a focused hurricane of fire that hit the 2 approaching attacks. The Shinseton was the product of his blood, sweat, and tears, and he had been working on incorporating shape manipulation into the silver flames he could produce with Amaterasu. He took some time to figure it out, but with Itachi's assistance, he was able to determine why the flames were silver rather than the usual black flames that Itachi could produce. It turned out that the characteristics of the flames were slightly different from Itachi's yin chakra. Based, Enten, as the Uchiha had called it, due to Naruto's much larger yang chakra. "Who is this guy?" Nightwalker asked thoughtfully as Naruto dispelled his Susanoo and the storm of silver flames swiftly overpowered Nightwalker's fire and ice attacks. "Come on," he muttered as he began to gather silver flames around his right hand and leapt directly at her in a flash of yellow light. He yelled, "Shinseton! Ten no Ikari!" and then threw out his hand, causing silver flames to shoot out in the shape of a lance, tearing up and burning the battlefield. Nightwalker retaliated, "Fuin no Yari! Runsibu!" as her spears swiftly reappeared and transformed into a gold and white spear. The silver flames were abruptly pushed back enough to give her some breathing room when she swiped down. "You dance well," a smiling Naruto remarked. "Someone once told me that when 2 strong people trade blows like this, then they don't need words to understand each other." Nightwalker questioned, "What is your point?" Naruto returned the question, "Can you read my thoughts? Can you see what's in my mind right now?" Nightwalker responded, "I can see just fine," as her spear began to glow once more. Naruto said, "Then let's end this little duel of ours," as he elevated 2 chakra arms from his shoulders to his hands. A moment later, the red and blue sphere of chakra began to condense into a black orb in his hands. Nightwalker pondered, "So that's your trump card, is it? That is your best shot?" She yelled, "Very well, then I won't hold anything back either," as her spear transformed into a silver blade with a red crystal in the center and a gold element in the base. "Amari, Sesso, Rivaruto." A crimson light quickly followed the 2 voices as the entire floating island burst and collapsed to the ground below in a shower of debris and flames. Edelus. The city of kings, the whole floating island containing the red lacrima, exploded violently as King Faust stood on a balcony miles below, gazing up. According to the reports he had received, it seemed that Earthland mages had attacked his kingdom in an attempt to rescue the people he had transformed into lacrima and given power to. The king said, "Prepare the Dorma Annum, I'm heading out too." A soldier stammered, But sir, that's forbidden under the Imperial Charter's Article 23. "Prepare it," Faust yelled at the poor man. The soldier bowed and rushed to fulfill the king's command. Yes, my lord, he said. Glaring up at the floating island nation of Extalia, Faust thought, my plans are so close to completion. I refuse to let a group of kids meddle and destroy everything. Daedalus. Extalia, floating island, what's going on? Those two exceed, brought a human here. As Wendy walked down the middle of the street with Carla and Happy at her sides, those were the words that were being uttered among the sizable group of Exceed. The three fairy tale mages knew better than the humans of this world, who regarded the Exceed as something like angels and gods. Being a god and possessing divine power were two different things, and these Exceed were no different from everyone else because they were fallible too. That was demonstrated by Naruto, Itachi, Konan, and Nagato. Wendy said, I'd like an audience with the queen, but it didn't sound like that at all. Out of the way, make way for Meow, yelled a black and white Exceed named Nady, who emerged from the crowd with an excessively long neck. You guys are in trouble. Humans are prohibited from infiltrating Extalia. Another Exceed exclaimed, what an awful perfume, reminding the three fairy tale mages of Ichiya from the Earthland. Surprised, Happy blinked, is that Ichiya-san? Nichiya commanded, seize them, and a dozen larger Exceeds with spears and armor materialized. Wendy, Carla said emphatically, please handle them. Wendy nodded and hurried to confront the Extalian soldiers. No problem, she said. She cried out, Tenryu no Yokugeki. As the wind whirled around her arms, pushing the Extalian soldiers, including Nichiya, back and into the food stands and buildings nearby. You'll be sorry for this, human, yelled an Exceed civilian in the crowd. You don't even know about the Queen's magic power. We're Exceed. We're better than you humans. Wendy said softly, so pitiful, but everyone could hear her. Your power has made you blind and arrogant. There are those infinitely greater that have fallen from even higher heights than you. She used to sound like Naruto, but now she sounds more like Itachi. Carla reflected, she's been hanging out with them far too much. We asked to see the queen. That wasn't a request. It was a demand. You dare, snarled another Exceed without a name. That's enough, said a female voice that was unfamiliar to the speaker. All of you, the crowd said, backing off as a fair-sized female Exceed with white fur, resembling Carla, stood encircled by a group of elderly male Exceed. She wore a golden crown and a dress with layers of purple and white. This was Queen Shagote, who ruled Extalia and was worshipped by the people of this world as a god. The time has come, she said with regret. With a start, Nady said, Your Highness, as the Exceed all bowed their heads. Shagote said, Everyone, please raise your heads, to her people. Now calm down and listen to my words. Why is the queen here? I bet she's about to do some crazy destructive magic. Quiet down. Shagote said, You bring destruction upon this world, to Wendy directly. Because of that I have come to a decision. Wendy shot back a glare. Don't blame us for your own mistakes, she said. You enslaved an entire race, made them revere you as gods and angels. Now look at where that's got you. Your world's magic is disappearing and you decide to steal magic from other worlds without a care as to the lives you've ruined. How many more people have to suffer because of you and everyone else in this world? When Shagote said, that is the fault of the humans. Carla growled angrily, you sent us on a mission to Earthland 6 years ago to kill the Dragon Slayers. Happy shouted, we're nobody's puppets. I'm sorry, Shagote said, understanding that she and the elders were the only ones responsible for that action. It seems that the time has finally come, she thought as she lowered her purple dress to show off her slender white figure. But what really grabbed everyone's attention was that she seemed to have just one wing. When Nady saw the lone wing, he was shocked and said, Why, Your Highness? This is my decision, Shagote said. I will tell you the truth. I am a mere Exceed. Not a queen, and certainly not a god. I am the same Exceed as all of you. I have no power with which to fight. I am deeply sorry for hiding it from you. Wendy.san, Carla.san, Happy.san, was it? I apologize to the three of you. It's my fault. I'm the one who authorized that mission. Please do not hold grudges against everyone else here. What do you mean? asked Wendy. No, it falls to the responsibility of us elders who made up such a thing as a queen. We're a very weak race, and long ago the humans did many horrible things to us. That's why, in order to protect ourselves, we made the humans think we had some kind of power. And in order for all of the Exceed to regain confidence, we even made all of Extalia believe in the power of God, Mezul, the elder, said. Humans who believe at first eventually came to embrace and fear the power of God, Martam continued. Rather than the power of God, however, it was really just a bluff we Exceed made, Maestwa said. For example, the human management that chooses who we kill. That's all made up. We aren't choosing which humans to kill. We have no such power, of course. There is only one power, though, Martam went on. And that is Shaggott's ability to see the future. She can see the death of humans. We made people think that these people were being killed due to the Queen's decisions too. That's a lie. The Queen is God. No. Irrelevant, snarled Carla. Whether or not you really have power, you ordered us to kill our friends and that is the truth. Mezil retorted, Shagote never gave such an order. Strange memories were implanted within me. My heart was controlled. You ordered me to carry out the Dragonslayer massacre from before I was born. Carla yelled with rage. Shagote looked away and trailed off, that's. No she didn't, stumbled Nady. There's a long, deep story behind this. Carla retorted, I don't care what story it is, I will not forgive her for that. Carla. Wendy said in a sorrowful whisper. It's exactly as you say, Carla.San, Shagote said, nodding as she leveled a sword at the trio. She lowered herself to one knee and bowed her head, saying, You are innocent and yet I hurt you the most. Please judge my sins with your hands, as one who loves both humans and Exceed, you have that right. Your Highness. Wendy screamed, Carla, stop now. As Carla grabbed the blade and approached the Queen of Extalia. Carla lifted the sword and swung it down, saying, After everything you've done and all the pain you've caused, I hope you can find peace with a real god. Clang. Happy, holding a kunai in his hands and holding back Carla's sword just above Shaggott's neck, said, You can't do this, Carla, as tears streamed from his eyes. Carla trailed off in disbelief, Happy. She's not worth it, begged Happy. You're better than this. Please. Stop this. They don't matter. The Queen doesn't matter and nor does anyone else in this country. I just. You don't remember everything like I did, Happy, Carla wept. She deserves this, you know that. It doesn't make it right, said Happy. Let's go home, let's just leave and then we'll never have to bother with them again. Carla nodded, okay, as her arms sagged and she let the sword fall to the floor. Shagote muttered, Carla.San. Happy.San. As Carla stumbled forward and was embraced by Happy. Those two. Both of them. I've only hurt them, and yet they. Why would they spare me? Happy grinned and said, Come on, let's get out of here and find the others, while Carla sobbed and buried her head in his chest. Why did he prevent her from killing me? Did he mean that he stopped her so she wouldn't end up like me when he said I wasn't worth it? As she watched the three mages leave, Shagote pondered. My daughter, I apologize for all the suffering I've caused you. Daedalus. Streets and Royal City together with the rest of the debris, Naruto and Nightwalker fell to the city below when the floating island that had once contained the red lacrima crystal exploded. All throughout the city, the debris rained down, destroying buildings and igniting the streets. As the civilians around them panicked and wondered what was going on, Naruto and Nightwalker both found it difficult to stay upright amid the chaos. Naruto posed the query, well, every bone in his body ached, and he had to throw his ruined trench coat on the ground next to him. His own chakra appeared to be nearly depleted, leaving him with just enough to survive, and he was unable to access any more of the Kyubis. This might be an issue, he thought, frantically going over his options. I don't have any chakra left, and I can't seem to use Kurama's chakra at the moment. Since there isn't any natural energy in the world, Senjutsu isn't possible, and I can't use the Sharingan without chakra. What should I do now? Nightwalker shot back, You never shut up, do you? She had fallen from the floating island and hit the ground, shattering her armor. The customized Daedalus Royal Army battle armor appeared to be unable to withstand the combined force of Naruto's attacks, her will to push herself past her breaking point, and a fall from such a height. Her unkempt hair and bare shoulders gave her an unexpectedly demonic appearance. Naruto cheekily asked, Has anyone ever told you that you're hot when you're angry? You. Nightwalker gritted her teeth, her face flushed, and she rushed forward as quickly as she was able. As he ducked a Nightwalker punch, Naruto thought, So much for devising a strategy to win. However, she didn't slow down and hurried to carry on her attack, pushing Naruto back as they exchanged blows. I haven't engaged in hand combat without the Sharingan in a long time, he said with a smile as he grabbed the redhead's fists and pressed his face against hers. You know, if I wasn't already dating Earthland's Urza I would have asked you out by now. I'm not her, Nightwalker shot back with a glare. She withdrew and fell onto her back, saying, don't compare me to her. Then she leapt back up and gave Naruto a quick double kick to the chest, sending him to the ground. As he raised his arms to cover his face, she lunged at him and began slapping punches. I'm Urza, nobody else. One of the Daedalus soldiers yelled, Captain Nightwalker, and half a battalion rushed through the streets to help her. Naruto grunted as he kicked Nightwalker off of him and pushed with his legs, saying, it looks like I can't ever catch a break. He leapt to his feet and tended to his bruises, which were healing quickly. Lady, you have some real anger management problems to work out. Nightwalker roared, silence, as she stood up again. One soldier said, your orders, Captain? Kill him, Nightwalker explicitly commanded. A male voice resounded, Kori no Zoke Maho. Isu Kinan, as the Daedalus soldiers were hit by dozens of ice bolts. Nightwalker turned quickly to face the people who had dared to attack them, exclaiming, what? Oh well. Known male voice mockingly said, hey, you guys are going to kill him, knowing he's from our guild? A female voice said, we never forgive those who raise a hand against members of our guild, and Naruto recognized it right away. Especially when the one you raised your hand against is my fiancé. That makes us enemies, said the man. You are all enemies of Fairy Tail. With a broad smile on his face, Naruto blinked and said, Urza, Chan, Gray, you're here. This is who I am in Earthland. A startled Nightwalker thought. How are you here? Naruto went on, I'd like to know that too. Gray shrugged and said, Gajeel broke us out of the Lacrima in the city's main plaza. The last we saw of him, he was heading for that big Lacrima floating over our heads. Naruto questioned, is anyone else awake in this world? Just Itachi, Mistogen, Nagato, and Konan, retorted Urza Scarlet. Mistogen, Nagato and Konan are trying to send that Lacrima back to Earthland. Naruto went on to ask, and Itachi? He took off earlier and we haven't seen him since, said Gray. Nightwalker muttered, this can't be happening, as the sky brightened and the big blue Lacrima on the floating island above them vanished in an instant. Whistling, Gray said, it appears that Mistogen finally made it through. Let's go, Scarlet said emphatically as she seized Naruto and Gray. Her body was glowing as her black wind armor encircled her. Kanso. Kareha no Yoroi, she said. Nightwalker yelled, wait, but it was too late. As she carried Naruto and Gray to their destination, Scarlet had already taken off into the sky in the direction of the floating island that once housed the big blue Lacrima. Daedalus. Blue Lacrima, floating island. Lucy stumbled. What happened? As the dust settled and a huge crater appeared where the big blue Lacrima had been just moments earlier. The Lacrima. It's gone? Natsu asked, blinking bewilderedly. A fresh voice said, it's been returned to Earthland, from above them. Mistogen. Astonished Natsu. I apologize for being so late, Mistogen sighed, standing on top of a huge eagle that was hovering. I was searching for the anima in order to send it back, and we wouldn't have made it without everyone's strength. Lucy inquired, you sent it back? Yes, Mistogen said with a nod. Using the anima once again, the Lacrima has been returned to Earthland in its original form. Everyone has been saved. Lucy sighed with relief. Oh, thank Kami. Sama, she said. Lily, Mistogen said with a smile as he took off his mask. It's good to see you again. Panther Lily nodded in response. You too, Your Highness, she said. Gray exclaimed, Mistogen, Gajeel, Natsu, Lucy, as Urza set him and the weary Naruto down on the floating island. Hey you three. Lucy smiled and waved. When Gajeel saw Naruto's condition, he exclaimed, what the hell happened to you? Naruto retorted, I was fighting Urza's evil twin. Nagato said, Naruto, Urza.san, Gray.san, while he and Konan were suspended above the floating island. It's good to see you again. Naruto asked, what are you two doing here, and where is Jelal? We thought you could use the help, Konan replied, her paper wings flapping to keep her in the air. He remained behind in Earthland while we ventured here with Mistogen and Itachi. As Carla and Happy dropped her off on the floating island, Wendy exclaimed, you did it? Is everyone safe? Mistogen nodded, grinning slightly. They've all been returned to Earthland, he said. Naruto inquired, "Where is Itachi, exactly?" To which Nagato replied, "We thought he was with you." "Jelal, you dare return like this?" came from below them in a loud, irate voice. Lucy inquired, "Is that the king? Where is he? After having concealed your whereabouts for 7 years, now you brazenly return? I am well aware that you were traveling about in Earthland closing up the anima. You traitor," the king's words reverberated. Wendy questioned, "Where is that voice coming from?" "Hey, show yourself," exclaimed Natsu. "Simply put, your anima plan has failed," Mistogen said. "There is no longer any meaning in this battle, is there?" As the enormous dragon, like war machine known only as Dorma Anum, rose to its feet and glared up at them in the royal city's main plaza, Faust sneered. "Meaning? Meaning in battle, you say? This is no battle. This is retribution against those who would make themselves enemies of the king. This is unilateral extermination." At the sight, Lucy stumbled. What is that?" Naruto pondered. "It almost looks like a dragon. If you intend to stand in my way, I will erase you and not leave the merest trace behind," said Faust. Mistogen's eyes were filled with horror as he said, "Father." Faust declared, "I am not your father. I am the king of Aeolus. Come to think of it, if I just finish you here, the one closing up the anima in Earthland will have disappeared. I can create giant lacrima and try to fuse them with the Exceed as many times as I please. Ha 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 ha. Nothing is impossible before the power of the king. The power of the king is absolute." Mistogen told the others, "Dorma Anum. In the language of this world, it means Dragon Knight, so it has the reinforced armor of a dragon." "Dragon," mumbled Natsu. Happy trailed off. "Now that you mention it, that appearance." Carla inquired, "What do you mean by reinforced armor?" Mistogen replied, "Any magic thrown at it is negated by its armor. My father must be piloting it from the inside." Faust commanded, "Come, my army. Crush them." Suddenly, dozens of flying lizards with Aeolus soldiers mounted soared into the air in the direction of the fairy tale mages. Scarlet said, "I'll deal with them," as she equipped her heaven's wheel armor and her body glowed. "Konso. Tenrin no Yoroi," she said, leaping into the air as dozens of swords appeared all around her. "Tenrin. Sakura and Soto." The blades sang as they whirled around her, then swung out to slash the flying lizards. "That outfit again," Naruto said, smiling while clutching his bleeding nose. "Urza-chan, you're killing me right here, damn you." Happy shuddered in fear. "Scary." Glancing down at the enormous metal dragon, Gray questioned, "What are we going to do about that thing?" "Magic is useless against it," said Mistogen. As Naruto put it, "What about chakra?" "That may work, but you're not in any condition to fight that thing right now," replied Mistogen. Naruto gritted his teeth in exasperation and asked, "Where is Itachi when we need him?" As the dragon's mouth opened and a concentrated burst of blue magic exploded at the floating island above it, Faust exclaimed with delight, "I will not let a single one of you escape. Every last one of you will perish." "Sanjimahojin. Kaiasui," Mistogen cried out as he leapt ahead of the explosion and formed 3 magic circles to separate himself from the impending devastation. The blue beam was reflected back at Dragon Knight by the barrier spell, which pulsed once before exploding in a fiery blaze upon contact. "Mistogen," exclaimed Wendy anxiously. "Mistogen? Is that your name in Earthland, Jelal?" "Ha ha ha ha." Faust chuckled, since the reflected attack had not hurt his Dragon Knight. "Foolish boy. Magic does not work against the Dorma Anum." Mistogen was struck in the chest and sent plummeting towards the forest below by another burst of fire from the metal dragon's mouth. Scarlet shouted, "Mistogen," as she watched him fall. "Damn it!" swore Naruto. "I detest feeling so unproductive." Faust aimed at the floating island again and exclaimed, "Crawling on the ground suits you. You should die there on the ground, just like that. You bastards are next, then." "Shit, we've got to get the hell out of here. Fighting that thing is out of the question," Gray said. Natsu yelled, "Karyu no Tekken," as he fell directly to the ground and delivered a powerful blow with his fist covered in blazing fire. Faust felt his Dragon Knight lurch from the impact and exclaimed, "What?" in shock. Who is inflicting damage on my magic? Proof Dorma Anum." Gajeel yelled, "Tetsuryukan," as his right arm changed into a steel club and struck the Dragon Knight's chest, making it lose its equilibrium. Wendy roared, "Tenryu no Hoko," as a tornado of wind burst from her mouth, knocking the metal dragon to the ground after striking it in the side. Natsu exclaimed, "Hey, that's pretty good, Wendy," as the 3 touched down next to each other. "Not at all," said Wendy. You too inflicted more damage. Gajeel said, "You bastard," while scowling at the metal dragon in front of them. His scowl turned into a sneer. "You've got a lot of nerve bringing a dragon to fight us," he said. "I've seen some real losers in my time, but you really take the cake." Lucy trailed off, staring down at the battlefield below. Natsu, Wendy, Gajeel. Will they be alright with just the three of them? "There's nothing to worry about," said Gray. "Their opponent is a dragon. They're the ones who can defeat it because they're the mages who slay dragons." Scarlet declared unequivocally, "They're dragon slayers." Naruto proposed, "We must leave this island immediately." "Agreed," Scarlet said with a nod. "Happy, Carla, can you both take us down there two at a time?" Carla replied on their behalf, "Yes," and hurriedly picked up Lucy and Gray. "I will help too," admitted Panther Lily. Scarlet questioned him, "Why?" "Because I believe in the prince," was Panther Lily's candid response. "Alright then, let's get down and back into this fight." Daedalus. Fairy tale on the go. The Daedalus royal army, under the command of Urza Nightwalker, the fairy hunter, had been hunting them for years and had killed them. When the Natsu and Wendy of Earthland unexpectedly arrived at the guild, they had lost half of their members, including their guild master. They believed their guild to be the Earthland fairy tale and had been looking for their friends. Edo. Natsu had captured the Earthland mages close to the royal city, and Edo. Lucy had acquired magic weapons for them to use when she encountered her Earthland counterpart. According to her spy, a reporter named Gajeel, it appeared that the royal army and the Daedalus fairy tale were engaged in a full-scale conflict. Additionally, her guild, the final guild in Daedalus, continued to flee like cowards. Standing atop a table, Edo. Lucy had addressed the guild as a whole, explaining the situation and the conflict between the Earthland fairy tale and the royal army. She wanted to assist in the fight against the royal army, but the guild members, particularly the captains, were terrified of the repercussions of engaging the royal army's soldiers. An unknown voice said, "You're a difficult group to track down," drawing the attention of everyone in the room. "When I heard that there was a fairy tale in Daedalus, I wanted to see what was the difference compared to the fairy tale of Earthland. Now I see what that difference is. The Earthland fairy tale aren't cowards." Edo. Jet scoffed as he observed the newcomer's clothing and asked, "Who are you?" His eyes were crimson red with an odd pattern, and he wore a black cloak with red clouds emblazoned on it. Itachi Uchiha, the new individual said, "A member of the Earthland fairy tale." "What do you want?" Edo. Droy insisted. In a monotone, Itachi acknowledged, "I was initially curious as to the nature of this guild when compared to my own. I had planned on requesting some assistance in the battle against King Faust, however just from one glance I can see that I shouldn't have wasted my time." "Good day to you," he said with a sigh. "You dare insult our guild, Edo." Jet yelled angrily as he sped forward and glided toward Itachi on the floor. Edo. Droy frowned and hurried forward, holding his club. "You think you can come in here and then leave as if you own the place? We'll show you," he said. Turning his head, Itachi said, "So weak," turning back to face the two attacking mages. "You Dakata," he said, and a moment later Edo. Jet and Edo. Droy both dropped to the ground, their eyes wide open. "Achieving the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan has also significantly improved my genjutsu skills." Edo. Lucy thought, "This guy," he took out Jet and Droy like they were nothing. "Please don't fight," a voice from the Uchiha's side said. Itachi thought, "I thought I'd met everyone in Earthland's fairy tale," as he looked at a young girl with white hair who appeared to be about Naruto's age and had a dejected expression on her face. Beside her, he saw what appeared to be Elfman and Mirajane in Daedalus. "That hair color," he said, squinting his eyes as his Sharingan came back to life. "Her chakra is distinct from the other two. In fact, it resembles the chakras of Elfman and Mira from Earthland. They just want to live in peace without fighting," the young woman said. Itachi said, "You," out loud. The question was met with silence. "Are not from Daedalus, are you? You're from Earthland?" "Yes," the young lady nodded in agreement. As she faced the unfamiliar cloaked man in front of her, Edo. Mirajane comfortingly took hold of her shoulder. I was transported here. 2 years. When the me that was here died." Itachi finally said, "I see," and turned to go again. He began to leave through the main doors but paused in the doorway, thinking, "She must be the younger sister of Mira and Elfman. He said sadly, "You know, your real brother and sister must be worried about you. Not that it matters anymore," and walked away. The young woman, Lisa Strauss, finally broke down and sobbed for the life she had lost. I'm so sorry," she said. Daedalus. Main Plaza and Royal City. Faust laughed as the three Dragon Slayer fell to the ground with a series of loud thuds. Ha 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 ha. As long as I have Dorma Anum, the ultimate magical weapon, my army will be immortal, he said. Gather more magic power, ye sky, ye earth. Give your magic to Dorma Anum. Salamander. Let's use our breath, Gajeel said, sounding worn out. He said, kid, you too, in reference to the blue net. We've been holding back since we don't know what will happen, but we've got no other choice. Understood, accepted Wendy. Natsu said, yeah. As the three threw back their heads and inhaled deeply, he yelled, Karyu no Hoko, as a massive fire tornado burst out of his mouth. Gajeel roared, Tetsuryu no Hoko, and let loose a similar tornado of spinning metal. Wendy exclaimed, Tenryu no Hoko, as she also let out a burst of compressed spinning air. The Dragon Knight was struck in the chest with inhuman force as the three attacks encircled one another and combined into one. The entire city trembled under the shockwave from the blast, making it seem like the world was exploding. Gajeel grinned and said, hey, we did it. Ha 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 ha. They exclaimed as a thunderous laugh sounded overhead, causing them to look up. Natsu shouted, above us, as they saw a healthy Dorma Anum coming down toward them. Gritting his teeth, Gajeel asked, it can jump? No way, said Wendy. Our attack didn't hit. To which Natsu replied, then we'll just have to hit it again. The Dragon Knight's mouth erupted in a hail of magic beams, and Faust yelled, I will not let that happen. The magic bolts hit the earth below, exploding in a stream of blood and flames that swept across the terrain. As the Dorma Anum landed again on the now crater-filled battlefield that was once the royal city's main plaza, the three Dragon Slayers attempted to dodge but were unable to fully escape, ending up sprawled across the ground. Gajeel rasped, this is bad, as Natsu spat blood out of his mouth and onto the floor. No magic left. Faust mockingly said, it seems you've run dry. Infinite mages though you may be, once you've run out of magic, it won't return for a while. You may assume that your treatment will depend upon your behavior. Now come quietly and become the source of my world's magic power. Wendy thought, it's over, I can't stand. Well, this is it, Gajeel rambled. Don't give up. Natsu gritted his teeth and forced himself to stand up, his face bloodied. It's not over yet. Bring it on, you bastard. I'm standing right here. Faust shouted, why don't you just give up and accept your fate? Die, as the Dorma Anum raised and then lowered its foot on Natsu, who fell to one knee after catching the enormous metal foot. Wendy trailed off, Natsu. You idiot, Gajeel said with a painful grunt. Without any magic there isn't anything we can do. As he summoned even more strength, Natsu yelled, Naruto doesn't need magic and he's still fighting. You saw the state he was in before. He's still fighting even though he's got nothing left to fight with. If he can do it then so can I. Before hurling the Dragon Knight back across the avenue. Don't you dare underestimate us Dragon Slayers. Faust yelled, know your place you little shit, as he blasted Natsu back with another blast from the Dragon Knight's mouth. Who the hell do you think you are? Tetsuryukan. Gajeel cried out as he transformed his right arm into a metal club and ripped through the Dorma Anum's foot, securing it. My leg. Faust uttered in confusion while attempting to maneuver the enormous device. To the others, Gajeel shouted, he won't be able to jump now, go Salamander. Alright, Natsu said with a nod. Wendy, can you give me a boost? Wendy said, got it, and pulled out a scroll. She yelled, Fuin. Kai. As the scroll burst into silver flames. At least she knew how to open a containment scroll, even though she had only recently begun studying the ninja arts under Naruto and Itachi. Scales appeared on Natsu's skin, and it appeared as though he inhaled Naruto's silver flames before they burst into flames. As he closed in on the Dragon Knight, the flames changed to yellow and he shot forward like a bullet. Doragon Fosu. He exclaimed. Metsu Ryu Ogi. Shiranu Igata. Guren Hu Ken. He cried out, tearing through the Dorma Anum with a roar that echoed. As the Dragon Knight fell to the ground, Gajeel thought, hey. I need to figure out how to trigger mine or else I'll fall behind at this rate. Naruto must have created those silver flames of his and sealed them away for Wendy to give to Natsu anytime he needed to trigger the Doragon Fosu. Natsu smiled and asked over his shoulder, what's the matter, old man? I'm supposed to say checkmate round about now, huh? You're supposed to say that before you take the king, Wendy said, smiling wearily. Gajeel grinned as the three gazed down at the now unconscious king of Edelus. You lose, old man, he said. Edelus. Battlefield. outskirts avoiding a fireball that exploded a few feet away, Naruto rolled to the left and hurled 2 shuriken at his assailant. As the shuriken sliced across his arms, the Daedalus soldier let out a cry of agony. The wounds weren't severe, and he wasn't particularly searching for death, but the attack made him drop his staff. After everything that had happened today, the blonde ex-shinobi was completely worn out. He had first been transformed into a gigantic magic crystal to be used as a power source. Then he had fought the men in charge of an empire that spanned the entire world, including his fiancée's evil twin. Now, he was fighting alongside the rest of his guildmates, Nagato and Konan, against the biggest army he had ever seen. When this is over, Naruto exhaled deeply. He spun his kusanagi around and used it to block another fireball. "I want a nice stemming bowl of ramen with extra miso," he said. Gray exclaimed, "Kori no Zoke, Isu Gaiza," as he produced dozens of spikes that protruded from the earth and drove the royal army back. "There's just no end to them," they said, and it didn't help that they were taking care to disarm the Daedalus soldiers rather than kill them. They were essentially helpless without their magic weapons. Nagato thought, "They've got reinforcements coming in too," as he watched a number of the previously mentioned flying creatures descend upon the battlefield. Carla barked, "At this rate we'll be killed," as she lingered behind them. Kurama said, "Naruto, I will talk with you," now, in the back of his mind. "What is it?" Naruto answered, "I'm kind of in the middle of something here." Kurama said, "Listen to me carefully, really clearly. I'm going to give you some of my power. It won't be much since this cage still restrains me, but it should be enough to get you back in the fight." "Why?" Naruto inquired in a more perplexed than suspicious manner. Kurama growled back, "I don't like others controlling my power, but in this instance I'd rather you use it than them." Being a proud creature, the demon fox did not like it when other people attempted to use its power. The Daedalus people had attempted to use it as a source of energy to power their civilization. These people were just as evil as those in the shinobi world, so if he had to choose between Naruto and them, it would be clear which he should choose. "All right," Naruto thought, nodding. "Let's get this done." Kurama said, "It's not much, but it'll do against these weaklings," as he forced a small quantity of his chakra into Naruto through the seal. In a matter of seconds, Naruto tore into a dozen Daedalus soldiers as his yellow chakra shroud burst into life and he shot off like a flash of light. He leapt to avoid a fireball and launched a chakra claw, snagging one of the flying creatures by the neck and drawing it in his direction. A couple of soldiers were forced to roll away from the impact site as his other hand raised and formed a huge chakra fist that struck the beast's head, sending it crashing to the ground. As Nagato watched, he thought, to think he's able to use the Kyuubi's power to such a degree. Lucy exclaimed, "Look," as a big tree rose up out of the earth. Happy trailed off at the sight. "That's..." On the side of it was a guild mark. The fairy tale. Naruto muttered, "You've got to be kidding me," as the Daedalus fairy tale members rushed at the royal army after emerging from the tree. "Let's go. Yeah, we don't just keep running away. Let's show them that you don't mess with fairy tale." "Beat the kingdom army," Itachi said. "My apologies for our tardiness," as he appeared to be right beside Naruto. "It took me a while for me to get their act together and aid us in this fight." With a slight smile, Naruto said, "This was your idea?" as he felt Kurama's chakra drain from him again. "I was wondering where you were." Itachi said, "We should try to end things here quickly. I imagine that Mistogen is preparing to enact the final phase of his plan." "Final phase?" asked Naruto. "Yes," Itachi said with a nod. "Surely you must have noticed that Nagato and Konan are gone." Naruto looked around and exclaimed, "What?" When I asked, "Where did they go?" "They were here a minute ago. I discovered that the two had vanished." Itachi thought, it would seem that it has begun, as the Earthland fairy tale mages all began to glow. "Daedalus. Anima, Royal City." As they walked into the room, Panther Lily said, "This is the room that produces the anima. Your Highness, just what are you planning?" Mistogen responded, "I'm sending most of the Earthland forces back to their world," as they moved toward the center. "This world's magic power is running out and there's no way to stop it. At this point I have one of two options. I either open an anima in reverse and send all of Daedalus magic power to Earthland, or..." One voice said, "Or he has us teach the knowledge of chakra to this world, coming from above them." Nagato. Konan. Mistogen said with a friendly nod. "This world's magic power won't last much longer, but it should still have enough time for them to begin training the next generation to survive what's coming." The words, "You're talking about the end of the world," came out slowly from Panther Lily. Mistogen retorted, "I'm talking about the survival of this world, there are no other options." Panther Lily asked, and which one have you chosen? Theirs, Mistogan said, nodding to the two former members of Akatsuki. Long ago on my homeworld there was endless war until a man bearing eyes like mine appeared and taught the mysteries of chakra. I intend to do the same thing as he did only here on this world, Nagato said. He was known as the Rakudo. Sennin, the savior of the world. I see, Panther Lily said with a sympathetic nod, so what happens now? It has already begun, said Mistogan. He asked the two former members of Akatsuki, did you get to say goodbye? No, Konan said with a sorrowful smile. This is where we part ways with them. From here on they are on own. When the Earthland fairy tale mages were lifted off and disappeared in flashes of light, the fighting swiftly subsided. Princess Jelal appeared shortly after and seized power in the kingdom. Urza Nightwalker and the other division commanders returned to active duty, this time directly under Jalal's command, while King Faust was banished. The younger generations would learn about the benefits of chakra from Nagato and Konan in the ensuing years, resulting in a revolution Daedalus had never witnessed. They succeeded in saving this dying world in the end. Earthland. Outskirts and Magnolia. Naruto cried out, Fusk, as he fell to the ground and collided with a dust explosion that reverberated. He moaned, oh man, and rolled onto his front. What the hell just happened? Itachi, who was unharmed, said, I think Mistogan's plan worked, standing at the edge of the crater that Naruto's impact had made. Naruto moaned once more and forced himself to his knees, asking, what plan? Itachi answered in the same monotone as before, the plan to return us to Earthland of course. Natsu yelled, we're back, into the pouring rain. Gray questioned, what about Fairy Tail? Lucy shouted, over there, and gestured toward the neighboring city. The guild and the Magnolia town are back to normal. Naruto inquired, and what about Nagato and Konan, since he couldn't see them? It was part of the plan, returned Itachi. They chose to stay behind in Daedalus and teach chakra to that world. Leader. Sama hoped that it would save them from destruction when their magic finally ran out. Urza Scarlet gave a sympathetic nod. To substitute their need for magic, she said. Naruto trailed off, so, the words, we will most likely never see them again, were spoken by Itachi. Damn it, swore Naruto. Urza's words, pull yourself together, Naruto, caught his attention. Before we do anything else we should make sure everyone is alright. Then a fresh voice said, they're fine, and everyone turned to face it. Naruto whispered, you've got to be kidding me, while everyone gaped in disbelief at the sheer volume of Exceed circling them. One of the Exceed said, we arrived in Earthland before you did. We flew all over. The guild and everyone in the town are just fine. It looks like none of them realized that they were turned into a lacrima. Earthland is awesome. It's overflowing with magic. Carla trailed off, how'd the Exceed get here? Naruto commanded, all of you come down here right now, as the surroundings appeared to tremble. In a matter of seconds, the Exceed was forced to the ground as the ground cracked slightly due to the tremendous pressure that was applied to everyone in the area. This pressure, Urza thought. This is from his presence alone. Incredible, not from his chakra or sage arts. Carla said, this is no laughing matter, gesturing to the Exceed that had gathered. These guys are dangerous, we should return them to Daedalus immediately. Wait Carla, Happy said, gesturing with his hand to catch her eye. Extalia is gone, so even if we return them, where would they go? I don't care, was Carla's straightforward response. Earthland has enough problems without adding more from others. Thanks Carla, Naruto said, his expression irritated, knowing that he was already causing issues for Earthland with Itachi, Nagato, and whoever else he had to deal with. He asked, are you trying to guilt trip me? You're different, retorted Carla. She turned back to the Exceed and said, you can deal with whatever comes your way, once more. They can't even clean up their own mess. Shagote began, I should explain everything before we continue. I have the ability to see future events, and one day I foresaw an image of Extalia's destruction. In hindsight it's clear that it fell naturally as a result of the depletion of magic in Daedalus, but at the time we thought it would come as a result of human actions. We realized that even if we went to war with the humans, we would never win. After convening a meeting we established a plan to allow 100 of our children to escape from our dying world and sent them to Earthland. Officially they were being sent in order to destroy beasts called Dragon Slayers, however unofficially it was to safeguard the future of our race. And so you used the anima to send us here, Carla affirmed. Yes, Shagote said with a nod. However, one thing occurred we had not expected or planned for. Your power awakened and predicted and jumbled your memories. Among the 100 Exceed sent here, you were the only one with this power. It's likely you foresaw bits and pieces of the future of Edalus. And you probably mistook it for a mission. Carla trailed off. It can't be. Happy said, then what about the rest of us? Shagote came to the conclusion, there was never any such mission, it was truly misfortune upon misfortune. You created your imaginary mission. The words, "You've got to be kidding me," Carla said firmly, so it was all a lie? The lie I used to confront the prophecy concerning my people caused you great sorrow to both you and the families who had their eggs taken. That's why I surrendered my sword to you, Shagote said. It is not the Exceed that are evil, just me. That's not true, Your Majesty. You did everything with all of us in mind. We were overconfident in ourselves, but we've made it all the way to Earthland. Let's go find those kids who escaped 6 years ago, an unidentified Exceed said. Yeah, we've got a new goal now, it's a new beginning. They can use my old Cage Shelter guild for now, Wendy said. Although Cage Shelter was officially no longer a guild, Wendy was still considered a member even after joining Fairy Tail, so the guild property rightfully belonged to her as she was the only person left alive, aside from Carla, of course. Carla nodded. Thank you, Wendy, and then her eyes narrowed. But why'd I have the same power as you? Shagote stumbled and turned his head away, saying, I wonder about that. Naruto said, you're her mother, aren't you? Which made the Exceed Queen freeze. After a pause, Carla questioned, is that true? Yes, Shagote confirmed with a nod. Carla rambled, then, that means. Wendy stated unequivocally, that makes you the princess of the Exceed. Carla asked, Mother? As her mother embraced her. Shagote muttered, I'm sorry for all the pain I've caused you. For once, Naruto sighed, exhausted. They'll stay here for now and we'll escort them to Cage Shelter tomorrow. For now, I just want to go home and get a good night's sleep, he said. Naruto, Urza uttered gradually. She looked around and asked, where's Itachi? Not again, moaned Naruto. Seriously, why does he keep disappearing like that? When Itachi emerged from behind a tree, he said, I'm over here, from the side. As another figure moved up next to him, the other Fairy Tail members in their group froze. My apologies for leaving, but there was someone I had to find, he added. That's, began Gray. Natsu uttered in surprise, Lisana. Happy inquired, how did she end up here? Carla wondered, could it be Edalus Lisana? No, Naruto replied, shaking his head as his own Sharingan whirled. Though he was unable to recognize familial chakra lines like the Uchiha could, he was certain that his Urza's chakra signature differed from Nightwalker's. Her chakra signature too closely resembles those from Earthland, he said. Lisana screamed, Natsu, before launching herself at the pink-haired dragon slayer and knocking them to the ground. She grinned down at him and remarked, I finally get to see the real you again, she cried out, happy. You're still as cute as I remember, as she removed Natus and held the Exceed close to her chest. At the sight, Gray trailed off, there's no way. Wait a second here. You can't be Earthland's Lisana, can you? Yup, Lisana said, grinning as she nodded. You've got to be kidding me, Urza whispered. That doesn't make any sense. You died 2 years ago. I didn't die or anything. 2 years ago while I was on a mission with Mira.ne and Elf Nichin. I was struck down and lost consciousness. I was probably pulled into an anima and ended up in Edalus, Lisana said. Itachi thought, this sounds familiar, recalling his own near-death interdimensional travel experience. I was shocked to discover Fairy Tail after waking up in Edalus, Lisana added. Everyone's vibe was different, but there were people who knew me there and everyone thought I was Edalus Lisana. I figured that the real Edalus Lisana was already probably dead, or at least that's what I felt from their reactions to me. I couldn't tell them the truth, so I pretended to be the Lisana they knew. It was confusing at first, but after I got used to everyone and hiding my own magic, I got along well with them. Then, you two showed up. Natsu, happy. Natsu asked, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell me? Lisana said, I couldn't say it. However, when all the magic power in Edalus was sent to Earthland with the anima, I was pulled along too and I ended up here with you all. Natsu said, Lisana. First. I know, Lisana said with a sorrowful nod. I'm sorry for everything. Let's go home. Earthland, Chaldea Cathedral and Magnolia. As two figures stood size by size in the graveyard, the sky was overcast and dark with a lot of rain. Elfman Strauss, the bigger of the two, was holding an umbrella and had a blank expression on his face with guilt and sadness sitting behind his eyes. While the two gazed longingly at the name engraved on the gravestone, His sister Mira Jane Strauss knelt down by it and brushed a set of leaves from the top. Strauss, Lisanna. Elfman, nay. Chan, we should get going, said. Just a little longer, said Mira, a splash. A voice they recognized yelled, Mira. Nay, elf. Nichan, from behind them. That voice, Mira thought, getting out of her crouched position and turning. When she saw her sister for the first time, she exclaimed, it can't be. Elfman exclaimed, Lisanna, in shock as his youngest sister threw herself into Myra's embrace. Whispering in the rain, I'm home, Lisanna said. As Elfman put his arms around his younger siblings, tears blended with the rain. Welcome home. Magnolia, fairy tale in Earthland. Lisanna said, it looks like the guilds changed a bit too, as she passed through the Pact Guild. And your vibe has changed too, Mira. Nay. Really? Smiled Mira in response. Lisanna sighed when she saw the gathering in front of her, but I guess fairy tale is still fairy tale after all, she said. I ain't working today so let's drink. Welcome home Lisanna. Itachi, wearing his usual expressionless expression, watched from the second floor as the party went on. Maybe it had all worked out for the best, but he couldn't deny that there was room for improvement. With the exception of Nagato and Konan, who both chose to stay in Edelus, they had all made it back safely. Now that Mistogan had seized the throne and taken over the government of that world, perhaps things would settle down there. On Earthland, things were much simpler. The Exceed was scheduled to move to the old Cade Shelter Guild tomorrow, and fortunately, nobody in Magnolia had noticed anything amiss when the entire city was transformed into a gigantic lacrima. Following some explanations and a joyful family get-together, it appeared that things had returned to normal. Mira said, so here you are, as she walked up beside the quiet Uchiha. I wanted to thank you for what you did, bringing her back to us like that. Itachi thought, it was just a coincidence that I discovered her. I had originally gone to confront the Edelus fairy tale in order to acquire some much-needed aid against the king and found her amongst their members. I knew that when we returned to Earthland, she would have been dragged along with us for being native to this world. Thank you, Mira grinned and said. HN, Itachi said with a grunt before turning away. Let's talk about the silent, strong type, Earthland, outskirts and Magnolia. On top of one of the numerous trees, a lone figure in an orange spiral mask with two eye holes twisted into existence, distorting time and space. As the moon hung in the night sky like an untouchable gem, reflecting light down on the world below, he began his journey over the bustling city. A black and white plant, like humanoid, appeared at his side as the air around his right eye was once more torn by a distortion. The white plant said, so this is it? He has to be here, the black plant said. The white plant said, I still can't believe that pain failed, and shook its head. The man in the mask proclaimed, it doesn't matter anymore, soon the Kyuubi will be mine. But before that I will show them despair. I will show them my power. The power of Uchiha Madara. Magnolia in Earthland. Uchiha Obito was a patient man who had waited in the background and planned things to help him achieve his objectives. Even after being assigned to the team led by Namikaze Minato, the not quite yet Yondaime Hokage, he was still viewed as a failure of the Uchiha clan. He had lost his right arm and leg in the Third Shinobi War, but he had survived despite being one of the many victims. The legendary Uchiha Madara had rescued him, bandaged him, and made him stay in what amounted to a hospital bed for the duration of his recuperation. After spending a few years in that cave recuperating from his wounds, he received word that one of his old teammates' Zetsu clones was in danger. After he set out to save his teammates, the spiral Zetsu fused itself to him, giving him a new arm and leg to replace the ones he had lost. When he had woken up his Mangekyo Sharingan, he had gone into a blind rage. He had arrived at the scene to find that Kakashi had killed Rin before fainting. After destroying the local Kiri Nins, he left the bloody battlefield and headed back to Madara. He found out about the Moon's Eye plan there. Soon after Madara's death, Obito adopted the man's name and retreated into the background. In order to gather the Biju to bring back the legendary Jubi, he had tricked Nagato into creating the Akatsuki. He had also wrestled the Kyuubi from its Jinchuriki and unleashed it on Konoha to battle his own former sensei, the only man who could challenge him. He was forced to retreat after a fierce battle, but he ultimately prevailed because Minato Sensei was dead and the Kyuubi could be easily recovered later along with the others. He had taken action to destabilize the area by seizing control of the Yondaime Mizukage and igniting a civil war throughout the entire nation after learning that the Mizukage had taken over the Sanbi. The Sanbi had taken time to change, and the Mad Mizukage had been killed. At this point, the Uchiha clan was suspected of being responsible for the Kyuubi attack and plotted a coup to remove the Sandaime Hokage, who had been reinstated. He had offered to help Uchiha Itachi massacre the entire clan because he saw a way to deal with the Uchiha clan and, more significantly, their Sharingan. By doing this, he had successfully eradicated one of the most popular methods of managing the Biju, which would have been extremely inconvenient to deal with later when he eventually got around to gathering his priceless pets. After Itachi himself joined the Akatsuki and helped gather the Biju, things had improved. Naturally, things took a turn for the worse when that brat Uzumaki Naruto slipped out of his grasp and was dragged into one of Kakashi's Kamui, a space-time ninjutsu that Obito had learned through the Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto had been dropped into this world called Earthland rather than his own private dimension. After Pain destroyed Konoha, he sent Pain and Konan to retrieve the Kyuubi, but Naruto defeated them, causing the impossible to happen. Obito realized then that he would need the right force to deal with the locals and that he would have to retrieve the Kyuubi himself in order to finish his plans. He had sent his new apprentice Uchiha Sasuke to deal with the Hachibi Jinchuriki after capturing 7 of the Biju, but he failed, so the Raikage called a summit. After he had taken 7 of the Biju, the 4 shinobi villages banded together to fight him, because Danzo was no longer useful to him. Sasuke killed him and tore out his eyes. However, in the end, it had pushed his Mangekyo Sharingan too far, causing him to become blind. He then resurrected an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan that was greater than Madara's own after implanting Sasuke's Mangekyo Sharingan into himself. When the obnoxious snake materialized in front of him, he killed Yakushi Kabuto and then unleashed his army of Zetsu clones on the 4 great shinobi nations, who referred to themselves as the Shinobi Alliance. Kumo and the majority of the Land of Lightning were completely destroyed in the short and brutal 4th Great Shinobi War. During the day, the clones were primarily used as cannon fodder, but at night, after changing into Alliance Ninja, they broke through enemy lines and killed everything they could, forcing the Alliance to declare a full-scale withdrawal. When Obito saw the Shinobi Alliance forces retreat to Kumo, he took to the battlefield and defeated the 4 Kage using the new abilities he had been given by his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. The Hachibi Jinchuriki were his only remaining opponent after Kumo was destroyed and the Kages were killed. Even though Karabi had total control over the Hachibi that was sealed inside him, he eventually fell against Obito, causing the Hachibi to be torn from his body and placed inside the Gedo Mazo. Only the Kyuubi remained. There were still 100 Zetsu clones remaining, more than enough to combat the local response forces in Magnolia, even though the majority had been destroyed during the conflict. He had used his own Jikukan Ito to set out for and travel to Earthland, just as he had done with Pain and Konan. Like everyone else, Uzumaki Naruto would fall and acquire the Kyuubi, reviving the Jubi to become its Jinchuriki and ultimately accomplish his plans. Kachiyose no Jutsu, Obito said emphatically as he slammed his hand against a building's roof. Buildings were leveled and people were plunged into a panic as the Hachibi no Kyogyu emerged with a resounding roar in a smoke explosion. He commanded, "Do it Hachibi," as it threw its tails in all directions, leveling a number of nearby structures. With her Heavian's wheel armor on and her swords spinning around her, Urza yelled, "Tenrin! Sakura and Soto!" as she slashed down the plant. Like creatures that attacked them, she insisted, "What are these things?" Itachi calmly replied, "They seem to be Zetsu," wrapping his Susanoo around himself and slicing into them. "Though I thought there was only one of him." Natsu roared, "Karyu no Tekken," and slammed his fist covered in flames into one of the Zetsu clones, turning it to ash. Itachi looked sideways and trailed off, "If Zetsu is here then." Naruto's red coat fluttered in the wind as he stood on the roof of the nearby building, staring directly at the raging Hachibi. He was aware that he was to blame for all of this devastation. The Akatsuki wouldn't have attacked if he hadn't come here. Ultimately, he was solely responsible for his presence and the chaos he caused for everyone else. This time, Madara wasn't sending one of his pawns. Instead, he was going after the Kyuubi directly. Urza shouted from the ground, "Naruto," which made him turn to face her, "Go get him. Get him now." The words made him smile. Naruto returned the whisper, "Thanks Urza-chan," just before the Hachibi roared and gave him a glare. As the red and blue orbs of chakra condensed into a single sphere in its mouth, he said out loud, "So you've noticed me?" He proclaimed, "I won't let you use that here," as his eyes developed his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Gyuki, the Hachibi, belted out, "Bijudama," as he hurled the black chakra ball like a dart. "Kamui," Naruto uttered as time and space warped before him. After colliding with the distortion, the orb was swiftly drawn in and then vanished entirely. "Now for you," he said, focusing on the tailed beast in question. He said, Kamui, once more, and this time a vortex developed in the middle of the Hachibi's chest. A voice he had never heard before said, Jikukan Ito, as the vortex appeared to disintegrate. What was that? Was it cancelled? As he squinted at the figure perched atop Yuki's head, Naruto pondered. When he saw the man in the mask, he added, it's him. Uchiha Madara. Kurama said, this is not Madara, in the back of his mind. His eyes are just like the real Madara and that brat of a teammate you used to have, but he's nothing but a fake. A fake? What is your inner demon? Naruto asked. How could he not be Madara after all that he has done? The idea that someone other than Uchiha Madara could have accomplished the things this man had done over the years was horrifying in and of itself. Who are you? You're not Madara, so who the hell are you? Uzumaki Naruto, said the man in the mask. Surrender the Kyuubi to me now and I will withdraw, sparing the lives of this entire city. Give up? Given the extent of the devastation surrounding them, the offer was alluring. However, Naruto shot back, you can take your offer and shove it up your ass, and answer my damn question. The masked man grunted, so be it, as his own eternal Mangekyo Sharingan whirled into being. I'm no one, so why don't you just call me Tobi? As Naruto activated his Sage mode, he thought, he was able to nullify my Kamui, but I wonder if he can. Senpo. Kamui. He exclaimed as he formed a spiraling vortex of space. Time in the middle of the Hachibi's chest once more, but this time the force of gravity and its immense size were much stronger. Tobi attempted to counter, Jikukan Ito, but this time it was unsuccessful. Yuki and the majority of the nearby buildings were sucked into the vortex, forcing him to leap off the Hachibi's head. As he landed far away and gazed at the spot where his beloved pet had once been, the Uchiha thought, that was much more powerful than before. This time, I was unable to prevent him from teleporting the Hachibi away. Naruto exclaimed, Keiyaku Fuin, as a hand touched his back from behind. A seal spread across him, making him jump away even though he knew it was already too late, even though the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's hand just phased right through his body. Fuck it, Tobi swore. He severed my ties to the Hachibi. Naruto proclaimed, now it's just you and me, pointing directly at him. I'm going to rip that mask of yours off and beat you to death with it. Tobi laughed and said, you want to remove this mask? You're welcome to try. They both whispered, Tsukuyomi, as their gazes met. Even though only a few seconds actually passed, the two had effectively been engaged in combat for days by the time the genjutsu ended. The loser would be imprisoned in an imaginary hell for 3 days. The winner would have been determined right away if one of them had not possessed the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, but because they both had those eyes, the battle dragged on for a long time until they both withdrew and went back to reality. Only a few seconds elapsed, but Tobi gritted his teeth and said, that damned brat. Shit, Naruto shook himself and rasped. From the recesses of his mind, Kurama snarled, pull yourself together, brat. This little shit controlled me once before, so you had better not lose to him, do you hear me? I hear you, furball, Naruto recalled, feeling reassured. Tobi said, Jikukan Ito, clearly, as time and space warped around his right eye. He yelled, Enten. Bakufu Ranbu, as black flames shot out of his left eye and spiraled in a tornado with the vortex. This chakra of his. Naruto pondered gloomily. He cried out, Shinseton. Arakoru Urashi. As silver flames erupted from his eyes like a focused hurricane and crashed into the black fire vortex. As he watched his silver flames successfully subdue the black flames before extinguishing themselves, he thought sorrowfully, so I was right. This chakra is a lot like Itachi's, which means that his current eyes were originally. Yes, Kurama said in agreement. Those accursed eyes are the same ones that belonged to that little shit Sasuke. Sasuke. Damn it, Naruto said, clenching his fists and hurling multiple silver fire spears at the Uchiha. Shinseton. Ten no Akari. Tobi sneered, that won't work, and he just phased through the flames. Don't you see how hopeless your situation really is? Naruto exclaimed, Senpo. Shinseton. Umimoru. As silver flames erupted, igniting the world before him. Tobi grunted, still you don't give up, as he stood in the middle of the fire, seemingly indifferent. As the sky grew darker and thunderclouds formed overhead, he said, I commend you for combining senjutsu with the power of your eyes, but in this case you've played right into my plan. What on earth is this? Gazing up at the lightning storm, Naruto pondered. Tobi said clearly, it's time that I ended this, while raising his hand to the sky. Kirin. Before the lightning struck, it formed a hideous tiger-like figure that destroyed everything it came into contact with. The battlefield was carved to pieces and the surrounding trees were either completely destroyed or rendered lifeless after the lightning strike, which caused the two battling shinobi to relocate into the forest outside the city. When the dust settled, the two shinobi themselves, still wearing their revered Susanoo, were the only living things in the sizable crater. Murmuring, "Those eyes you have," Naruto said, "they're Sasuke's, aren't they?" Toby pondered, "So you recognized their chakra?" "Yes, they used to belong to your old friend, but I took them when he was of no further use to me." "Use?" Naruto said harshly in a whisper. "What did you do him?" "He was so easy to manipulate it was laughable," Toby said with a laugh. "But without Itachi's eyes to replace his own, he quickly went blind. I killed him and took his eyes for myself." Naruto trembled in rage and trailed off. "You?" Toby asked, "Are you upset that I killed your old friend?" "Don't be. His death is only temporary. I will bring him back along with everyone else once my Moon's Eye plan is completed." "Moon's Eye plan?" asked Naruto. "What the hell is that?" Toby sighed and squinted at the blonde. "It doesn't matter," he said. "Let's finish this," as his chakra surged and his Susanoo grew to a height that easily rivaled that of a Biju. Kurama said, "There's no time for second thoughts now," in the back of his mind. "Win or lose, it all comes down to this moment." Naruto muttered, "Yeah, out loud, I know." Toby cried out, "Enten! Kagetsuchi no Tsurugi," as his Susanoo slashed at the blonde, forming a long sword encrusted with black flames. As Naruto wrapped himself in his golden shroud and drew on Kurama's chakra, he thought, he may be fast, but he's not fast enough. Naruto was able to avoid the sword's swipes and pull away before the black flames caught him thanks to his Susanoo and Sage Mode. Toby continued, "Enten! Yasaka Magatama," as he began tossing dozens of enormous Magatama encased in black flames, which swiftly destroyed the battlefield and set it on fire. As he dodged the onslaught, Naruto thought, "He's trying to blanket the entire area in the hopes of getting me. He can't touch me with that between your chakra, my Sage Mode, and my Susanoo." "You should consider yourself lucky that I'm letting you use your Sage Arts with my chakra," Kurama responded. "The only reason I'm not interfering with the balance is because I want him dead more than you." As he leapt back into the trees and began directing chakra toward his hands, Naruto thought, "We still need to work on your attitude." Sweat began to trickle down his neck as he formed a pair of chakra arms to help him. "All I need is one shot," he said. A golden shuriken of energy swirled wildly in his hand as his chakra blended with Kurama's and the surrounding natural energy. "Here I come," he swung his arm back and yelled. Toba's eyes widened at the sight. "You still?" Naruto yelled, "Futon! Rasen Kamikaze," as he threw the golden chakra shuriken at the Uchiha. Toby growled in rage, then spun around again and dragged himself in, dropping his Susanoo as the chakra shuriken sliced through it. Naruto observed as the shuriken's central sphere grew until it engulfed the chakra construct and the surrounding area entirely. The forest was ripped apart by the whirling ball of power and wind, which shredded everything in its path. Just before the sphere exploded outward, leveling a sizable portion of the remaining forest and leaving behind nothing but a mountain-sized crater, there was a sudden silence. A moment later, Toby was back in the middle of the crater. Toby mockingly said, "Uzumaki Naruto, don't you ever give up?" "You must be joking with me," Naruto thought. "That was my best shot." He had lost all of his natural energy and the chakra he had stolen from Kurama after their fight due to that last attack. Kurama said, "Would like me to give you a little power? Will we resume our game of chakra tug of war?" In response, Naruto asked. "I told you before," retorted Kurama. "I want him dead more than you." "All right," said Naruto, "let's do this together." He nodded and reached for the seal on his stomach, twisting it. As Toba's reformed Susanoo swung its flaming sword down upon his position, the seal swiftly unraveled, the enormous chakra construct looming over him. "You realize that we will eventually need to make amends for this minor grievance you hold against me." Kurama nodded as the seal vanished and his prison's gates opened. "After we've dealt with this little shit," he said. "Let's go, Kurama." Naruto yelled out loud as Kurama's chakra surged through his body and burst upward, sending the Susanoo-clad Toby flying a long way back. As he straightened up and gazed at the scene before him, Toby trailed off. No. Naruto's seal had extended to his hands and feet, and his chakra shroud had opened to reveal a black undershirt of chakra underneath. The six-whisker-like marks on his face had turned into black rectangular markings, and the collar of the overcoat was engraved with 9 Magatama. Now, with the same seal engraved on the back of the 9-tailed fox, he stood inside the head of a mountain-sized Kurama made entirely of golden chakra. After roaring into the air, Kurama fell to his knees and glared at Uchiha, who was wearing a mask. Naruto screamed, "I'm going to beat your ass into the ground, Databeo," as Kurama sprang forward. Tobi grunted as his Susanoo swung its sword from the side. "Accursed brat," he said. Before he could slam his full weight into the chest of the armored chakra god, Kurama's tail swung out and caught the arm that held the blade, stopping it in its tracks. With a loud thud, Toba's Susanoo fell back and hit the ground. With lightning speed, Kurama leapt on top of it and sank his teeth into the chakra armor. In order to stop the Susanoo from retaliating, his tail swung around, slamming down and pinning its arms and legs. "Go Kurama!" exclaimed Naruto. Tobi sounded back, "I'm not done yet," while forming a hand seal. Behind them, a huge wooden dragon that said, "Mokuton, Mokuryu no Jutsu," swiftly encircled Kurama. Naruto cried in shock, "Mokuton? Since when could he do that?" In response, Kurama screamed, "I don't know, but he's suppressing my chakra. Do something," while battling the wood dragon. Tobi said, glaring, "A sacrifice that clings to his ideals has no right to defy me. Drown in your ideals and die." "Naruto!" exclaimed Kurama once more. As he wrapped Kurama in his own senjutsu, enhanced Susanoo, Naruto exclaimed, "Senpo! Susanoo!" giving Kurama the appearance of a real Akuma wearing royal armor. "This is just like Madara," Kurama smirked as he thought. He uttered the words, "As much as I hate that bastard, even I have to admit he had style," before tearing the forest and a few nearby mountains to pieces with his tails. He roared, "This ends here," and began to form a lot of black chakra orbs in his mouth. "This is not good," Tobi pondered the scene. Kurama screamed, "Renzoku Bijudama," and hurled a barrage of black chakra spheres at Toba's Susanoo. The battlefield was torn apart in a blaze of light as Tobi dissolved his Susanoo and the black balls of death flew past him before crashing into the ground behind him. The Kyuubi no Yoko roared one last time, "Udama Bijudama," and hurled a much larger chakra orb at the masked Uchiha. Tobi swore out loud, "Damn it," as he instantly returned to his physical form. The sphere burst into a dome of light that covered the surrounding terrain, illuminating the region to the point where Magnolia, a nearby city, could plainly see what was essentially a second sun form on the horizon. A moment later, as Naruto fell to the ground, the light dimmed and Kurama's form vanished. "Kurama?" As the last of the fox's chakra left him, Naruto questioned. "I forgot to mention this, but since it was our first transformation it could only be maintained for 5 minutes, Kurama said. "Thanks anyhow," Naruto said, nodding and turning to face his rival. He had taken off his mask. With the remnants of his mask at his feet, Uchiha Obito gave him a vile glare in return. He had already outlived his time limit for remaining intangible, which prevented him from fully phasing into his personal dimension. They had already reached their limits and knew that neither of them could get away without the other killing them from behind as they retreated, so this battle was over. Thus, the winner would be the first to launch an attack. Naruto said clearly, "Let's finish this," as he began to direct chakra toward his hand. Without a word, Obito poured his remaining chakra into his left hand and formed a set of hand seals. When he saw the familiar lightning chakra form in his hand, Naruto blinked in surprise and then shook his head. It was obvious that this man had learned more from Sasuke than just his eyes, but that was irrelevant at the moment. Obito moved to stop him as he rushed forward. Rasengan. Chidori. As the two battled for supremacy, the earth trembled one final time as their attacks collided. After a few agonizingly long seconds, Naruto's attack finally succeeded and hit Obito in the chest. The Uchiha crashed into a small group of broken trees after being blown back out of the crater they had been fighting in. Naruto felt the last of his strength begin to leave him, so he waited to see if his opponent would get back up. The phony Madara failed to rise again. It was finished. Magnolia, Fairy Tail in Earthland. The arrogant Urza Scarlet was frequently referred to as the strongest woman in Fairy Tail, and she was indeed that. She was abducted into slavery shortly after losing her parents when she was a young child. She had almost been broken by the torture she had endured while constructing the Tower of Heaven with the other slaves, particularly after losing an eye to her captors. She had lost her mentor after the disastrous uprising from which she was the only one who had escaped, reawakened her magic, and felt utter despair upon realizing how futile her dream of real freedom had been. After joining Fairy Tail, her mentor's guild, she made an effort to move on with her life. She made friends, lived life to the fullest, and even began to develop feelings for the blonde moron who was currently unconscious in the bed in front of her. But ultimately, everything had pointed to the Tower of Heaven and her erstwhile allies who had completed its construction. She was prepared for it to end there, as it always had. Just her and Jelal. That was the day she was supposed to die. Despite being confronted by a freed Kyuubi without Yoko staring down at her and her allies, she managed to survive and kept going. When his body was broken and his soul seemed to be tearing itself apart, she had seen the man she loved fight to the end. She had witnessed him sacrifice everything for his convictions, and ultimately, she had fallen deeply in love with the reckless fool. Urza stared at his bedridden form and whispered, "Naruto." He had faced down the man who had killed his parents and defeated him, only to faint with exhaustion. He would have died right there if it weren't for the Kyuubi's presence in his body, which increased his own life force after his body had been pushed past its breaking point. As evidence of the size of the death match that had occurred, the forest on the outskirts of Magnolia had been totally destroyed by the battle and replaced by a huge canyon. Za. Naruto's eyes flickered and he strained to speak. "Naruto?" Urza inquired in a hopeful tone. Naruto turned his head to face her and moaned, "I feel like hell." "I was worried," Urza said with a smile as her eyes filled with relief. Naruto said, "I'm sorry, an apology, but it was something I had to do." Urza nodded, "I know, though." Naruto had to face the man who was responsible for all of his suffering, just as she had to face Jelal at the Tower of Heaven and lay her past to rest. "You came back." "Yeah," Naruto returned the smile, "it's over." Urza shook her head in response. "No it's not," she said, "it's only beginning." "I love you." Mira sighed and held a tray of food. "We should leave them alone for now," she said. "And I made this for them too." Itachi thought, "I'm sure Natsu will enjoy it more," as they turned away. Mira asked abruptly, "Are you ever going to smile?" Itachi paused and turned to face her, saying, "Excuse me?" "It's nothing," Mira said with a shrug as she passed him. Itachi whispered, "Strange woman," and trailed after her. Magnolia, fairy tale in Earthland. Despite being his birthday, Naruto had never had anyone to truly celebrate, and to be honest, he had stopped caring a long time ago, so the 10th of October had always been just another day in his life. However, when he woke up this morning and understood exactly what this day would hold, that changed. He was going to marry the woman he loved more than anything else on this day, which wasn't just any day, it wasn't even his birthday. "You seem nervous," Itachi said. Naruto shot back, "I'm getting married," through a glance. "What's there to be nervous about?" Itachi said, "You should calm down, I'm trying," sighed Naruto. He said, "Here we go," as the piano's dreaded music began to play. Urza. She was approaching wearing a long, gorgeous white dress with a see-through veil covering her face. Mira followed, keeping the edge of her dress off the ground, while Natsu escorted her down the aisle. Natsu released her as she got to the end of the aisle and took a seat beside Lisana, while Mira went to join the bridesmaids. Urza moved to stand next to Naruto and grinned at him through her veil. Makarov said, "Dearly beloved," from atop a big stool that made him taller than they were. "We are gathered here today to join together this man and this woman in the bonds of holy matrimony. If any person can show just cause why they may not be joined together, let them speak now or forever hold their peace," he said before continuing. "Are you Naruto Uzumaki and Urza Scarlet living together in the sacred estate of matrimony as husband and wife? Will you cherish and continuously give her your heart's deepest devotion, putting aside everything else, and keeping yourself solely for her as long as you two are alive? Will you love her, comfort her, honor her, and keep her in good times and bad, rich and poor, happy and sad, and rich and poor?" Naruto replied, "I do," and the guild master then turned to face the redhead. "Are you Urza Scarlet and Naruto Uzumaki living together in the sacred estate of matrimony as husband and wife? For as long as you both live, will you love him, console him, honor him, and keep him in good times and bad, rich and poor, happy and sad, and rich and poor? Will you cherish and continuously give him your deepest devotion, leaving everything else behind?" Makarov questioned her. "I do," Urza said, smiling under her veil as she nodded. "Very well," confirmed Makarov. "Now for the rings," he said, and Itachi came forward carrying them. Urza. Naruto trailed off, putting the ring on her finger. "Looking back, I wouldn't change a thing, but it's been a long road and we've lost a lot along the way. Nothing can make me stop loving you more than anything else in the world." Naruto. Urza grinned back, slipping the ring she was holding onto his finger. "I will not regret anything that happens in the future that we are walking towards," she said. "Together, let's venture into that future and see where it leads." Makarov said, "You may now kiss the bride. I now pronounce you man and wife." The doors to the guild opened as the two pulled away and began walking down the aisle as confetti began to shower them. Once outside, they saw a full Grown Gamakichi waiting for them, dressed in a red coat, with a large sword tied to his side and a pipe in his mouth. Naruto pulled back her veil, smiled, and kissed her as her arms wrapped around his neck. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause a moment later. Naruto smiled as he sat down with his wife in his arms and said, "Let's get out of here." To get there, they spent their honeymoon at the Akane resort. The writing on the back of Gamakichi's coat became visible to those observing the newlyweds depart as he took off in that direction, recently married.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.